Hello, friends. Welcome back to Area 312 Rock and Metal Vodcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host,
Rex,
and our other co-host,
Mike.
And today, friends, we are welcoming legendary vocalist Dale Thompson. Dale, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It's quite an honor for us. And we mentioned just a minute ago, we've been doing the math. I think I'm the youngest between Rex and Mike and myself, and I'm 50 and 15 the first time I heard Show No Mercy. So me and the guys have been rocking out to Bride for 35 plus years. So that's awesome. And Dale, you have, we know your time frame, and we just need to get rolling. If you don't mind, sir, because I'm curious, you're perhaps known most for your powerhouse vocal delivery. If you don't mind, Dale, would you tell us about your musical experiences growing up? I've seen you singing with Troy, your brother, and your dad on some recent videos. Were you raised in a musically inclined family?
Yeah, we would have little get-togethers on Friday, Saturday nights, and this was when I was 5, 6 years old. I even have a picture that my mother took of me, not playing an instrument but playing a fly swat, next to my dad. Him and his nephews and cousins and brothers were all playing together, and we grew up singing in church and Southern gospel music, the old hymns, and that nobody sings anymore unless you're in the backwoods. Everybody's doing the new praise and worship. They have to have a cheerleader, and so we grew up on that. And I think my first taste of music outside of church would have been like maybe the Eagles or Kenny Rogers or something along that. I remember having a Bob Seger album when I was young, and it wasn't until Troy and I decided to start a band. We called it Core Band. I think it was Corbin, and I don't know even what that means. But anyway, we had this little band, and we had some people that were all right players, I guess, but I was probably the least talented of the bunch. And so I'd heard an album, probably by either Res Band or Servant or somebody from back in the day that was before Bride. And I know I listened to a lot of Second Chapter of Acts and Phil Keaggy, and that kind of brought me along a bit because he was on a live album with Second Chapter of Acts, and it just blew my mind. So I went and bought for my acoustic guitar a little round pickup, and I stuck the pickup in the hole. So now I was electrified. Now I couldn't figure out how they were getting that sound, so I went and bought a distortion pedal for my acoustic guitar, and we played like that for a while. We ended up finding a really good drummer, Steve Childers, and I switched to bass guitar, and Troy switched to electric guitar. He's much more mathematically inclined than I am, so he was going to be a better player. You know, they say if you can play music, you should be good at math. So that shows you my whole problem from the get-go. But we started a band called Matrix, and Matrix was together probably 3 years, I think. And we went through a host of different transformations. Couldn't find the sound we wanted. We were hoping to actually come out and sound a bit like maybe the Cars or U2 or the Police. We were looking for that sound, and what we came up with was something completely off the wall and different, because Matrix just didn't sound like anybody. And we were actually we didn't even know it, we were putting on a heavy metal show with that sound. I mean, we had flash pots and smoke and fog and all of that. And we played a lot of local shows, but it was 1985, I think early 85 or late 84, I can't remember now, but we had been selling cassette tapes through CCM Magazine and White Throne Magazine and some of the old Christian rock magazines back then, Risen Rocks and stuff like that. I think it was Judd Harper who went off the rails. But anyway, we sold cassettes, and a promoter named Dorn, can't think of his last name, Rippaport? I'll just say Dorn for now. Some of my friends list even. Mine drew a blank. It's an age thing. He was doing the Daniel Band album release party, and Daniel Band's playing this show, and he heard our cassette tape and said, "Why don't you come up and you guys can open?" So I think he actually paid us $500 for that. We all jumped in a van. We brought along a friend of ours, Billy Sutherland, who's master musician, who actually got me into this to begin with because I admired his playing so much. I'll tell you a quick story. Even before all that, I was in a band called Warrior with Billy Sutherland. And Billy needed a bass player, and I didn't know how to play bass, but I wanted to play with Billy so bad, I went and bought a bass guitar and an amp and showed up to try out. Now, I've never played bass before. So he's like, "So you don't know how to play?" I'm like, "No, I just want to play with you." And he taught me how to play bass so that I could play in this band Warrior. But anyway, we took Billy Sutherland with me, with Dale, the bride, with the band. And we opened for the Daniel Band, and it was an amazing night. We brought our flash powder and boxes, and we put too much powder in them because we had never played a room that large. So when it blew up, it sent splinters out to the crowd, and people were cut by the explosion. Billy was too close to the flash pot when it went off because the guy operating it, he did the switch too soon. And when Billy was leaning over the flash pot when it goes off, so I see the explosion, and then Billy's laying on his back, and I'm still singing, and I walk over and look at Billy, and I'm like, "Are you all right?" And he's laying flat on his back going, "Yeah, I'm okay." And he's still playing. I'm like, that's the weirdest thing. After the show, people actually brought pieces of the flash powder box to us and asked if we needed to put back together. If they didn't, they wanted to keep it as a souvenir of the show because they picked up all this wood that had exploded. But after that show, the record company was there for the Daniel Band, watching them, Refuge music group. Thieves, Liars, and Deceivers, this record company was. And they had a label called Pure Metal Records. And they asked us, they hated us. They thought we were terrible. But when the Daniel Band started their show, everybody was talking to us in the foyer. So the Daniel Band was starting a show with nobody in the auditorium because everybody wanted to buy merchandise. We sold out the merchandise within 10 minutes of the Daniel Band's performance. Then everybody went back and seen the Daniel Band. Not that we were better than the Daniel Band, but they had never seen anything so insane as us. And we weren't that good that night. Well, there's a video of it floating around on the internet somewhere, even the explosion. I haven't found it recently. But they signed us, and that was the start of Bride, because during the album contract signing with Refuge Music Group, we changed the name to Bride. It actually says Matrix, and then we took a pen and crossed out Matrix and wrote in Bride because Troy had researched Matrix, and there was a jazz band at the time called Matrix, so we didn't want any conflict. But we couldn't find any band called Bride, so that's how I got started in the music business.
That's well, who suggested the name Bride, Dale?
At the time, as all young men do, I was reading a lot of the Book of Revelation, so I'm trying to figure it all out. I think I did. I think I just saw the name Bride, and then I thought, well, Queen, Cinderella, all these bands. I don't know if Cinderella was around, but I used to justify it. So anyway, yeah, it's something along that lines.
Very cool. Well, Show No Mercy, Live to Die, 86 and 88 respectively. Man, with Show No Mercy, you guys delivered as Thunder in the City, Evil That Men Do, Forever in Darkness. A lot of classics about Live to Die we'll talk about, but something I'd like to mention is Bride is responsible for my love of Gustave Doré, who was the illustrator of your first two albums. And I did not know who he was at the time, but I just remember just being so caught up in those covers. And the illustrations that you all used from Doré were the destruction of Leviathan on Show No Mercy and Death on a Pale Horse on Live to Die. Dale, who was responsible for choosing the album covers for those two albums? Because they're just seminal. I mean,
well, that was Refuge Music Group that showed us those, and I thought that was quite cool, because then when I found out what it was, that it was etchings, I was even more blown away, the detail of the etchings.
right.
It was our desire to continue that theme, but unfortunately, and I won't get it too far ahead in our conversation, I know you have a game plan there, but after Live to Die, we couldn't buy a gig, and we weren't being told anything positive from the record company about album sales, basically because they were lying to us. At one point, they wanted to move on, and they basically said, "Do you want product or money?" And we said, "We want our money." We should have took the product, because we never got the money, and they had product to give us. So we made a mistake there. But we were going to continue that theme, but we felt as though Show No Mercy and Live to Die, as good as we thought they both were at that time, that we needed to conform a bit and be less metal. And if you'll notice, us becoming less metal was that from Live to Die, we didn't use Steve Osborne on Silence is Madness. Steve Osborne made Matrix Bride in the beginning because he was a metal player and a phenomenal player. So when we got to Silence is Madness, Steve was busy in a club band or something somewhere, and we couldn't bring him on board, or those songs would have been heavier than they were. So we brought in a guy named Rob Johnson to play the solos, who was a masterful player himself, but he wasn't a songwriter. He wasn't contributing riffs. It was more just solos. So that's why Silence is Madness took a different turn from where we were going. And I welcomed that, because I knew we weren't going to go anywhere as a thrash band. And Troy was never into thrash stuff to begin with. You know, he's Daryl Hall and John Oates type guy. But, you know, from the very beginning, he's always followed my lead. And if I was animate enough about it and felt strong enough in my convictions, we pursued it, and he just followed. And he played things out of his register, but he managed to write songs that were believable and good songs.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the change right there, and that's why those album covers ceased at that point. Because I wanted the theme all the way through. I thought, well, we'll do 5 albums maybe, and that'll be fantastic, you know. And here we're 16 in, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Live to Die. I mean, it's certainly a classic. And, you know, there's some things about it. You're talking about, you know, there are elements of thrash, of course, Fire and Brimstone and things of songs like that. But you have the Epic Heroes. You have, In the Dark. Love that song. Whiskey Seed. You know, In the Dark, it has that wonderful jazz breakdown in the middle. I mean, it was so neat. Such a seminal album. I've got to ask you, Dale, just because you're the source and I've never had this opportunity before. Let's see here. Heroes. I don't know how, I guess I was 16, 17 when I heard Live to Die.
You don't want to listen to the end of that in the dark.
So I had the cassette, right? And I'm guessing side 2 finished earlier than side 1, so I would always just stop the cassette, flip it over, rewind to the first song again, and, you know, here we go. And I was letting that song play out, the dead space, in my sister's car, and all of a sudden, here we go with the noise, you know, and I can't even describe it, like somebody was slaughtering a lamb or something. Dale, you scared the poop out of me. What was going on there, man?
Well, if you listen to that vocal tone, that is not a Dale vocal. That is, after we left the studio, John Petrie, the producer, had such an unusual sense of humor, basically because he was from Buffalo, New York, and people up north normally have weird senses of humor. But he, I guess he'd frozen too much along that lake because it gets pretty snowy up there. So something wasn't right with John. But anyway, we left, and there was an upright piano. I'm lying. It was a grand piano that somebody had turned up on its side, and I don't know if it was the way you tune a piano or what. But anyway, it was there in the studio. So after we left and went back to Kentucky and left the mix to John, he went in there and recorded this unbelievably horrific, sardonic, demon-like thing that when we heard it, we were shocked. And I've had to make not explanations, but excuses for that my entire life of why that's on there. He used to mess around and make weird sounds and say we should put goats bleating on this album or do it backwards or something, and was no evil intent. It was just boys being stupid and funny, and he did it.
Yeah.
So he sure did. So that's and I've heard people say, man, it was a great album, but what happened at the end?
Well, I mean, it's part of the package. I mean, and I have read, at Bride Pub and everything, and I read the information, but, just an opportunity to hear firsthand, from one of from you, and quickly again, back to Steve Osborne, great guitarist, performed with Bride on Show No Mercy and Live to Die. He also performed on Skin for Skin in 2006 and Sarbama in 2009. And then Steve passed on November the 16th of 2011. And Dale, if you don't mind, just please share just a little bit more about your friend and guitarist Steve Osborne. We just do respectfully remember him here.
Yeah, Steve was a guy that had battled a lot. He had battled drug addiction. He had had cancer. He beat both of those. He beat alcoholism. He was a guy that would be in the band for a while, then go play the clubs for a while, and we'd bring him back in the band. And Steve always talked about the Lord and his struggles and his demons and all the things that he had to deal with. When I first met Steve, he was living at home with his mother, who, I mean, it's no secret. I mean, she was a practicing witch, and Steve was raised under this environment, but he wasn't into any of that stuff. He thought his mother was a little bit off in left field, and he was always embarrassed if I came over to pick him up for a rehearsal that he didn't want me to meet her. He slept in kind of a cocoon of a thing, and in the basement. And I think it was a basement. I'm seeing it in my head as a basement. It might not be. But anyway, but he did have his guitar strapped above him. So when he woke up in the morning, bring his guitar down and practice. In the beginning, Steve was very competitive, and he did not want Troy to know his licks. So I remember Steve playing with his back to Troy in rehearsals. So Troy couldn't see how he's playing certain things. But, you're young, you're immature. And as Steve got older, and he faced life, he bettered himself, and he got off drugs, and he had the battle with cancer, which he won, and he became a nurse, and he was a nurse at the hospital, very well-liked nurse, helping people, fine job, and his marriage fell apart. He had a best friend, a cat that had been killed by a pack of pit bulls, and that pushed him over the edge. And not many people know this, but he went and bought a gun because he was going to revenge his cat. And I think it might have even Frank Perpetual, my old bass player, somebody like that told him he didn't need to do that. But on that date that you mentioned, Steve was at his lowest point and took his own life. And we miss him. He would love some of the stuff that we're doing now. He had the most contagious smile and genuine gentleness to him. and he spoke proper, and he was polite, and he was everything you wanted in a friend. But what he didn't know is all he had to do is pick up that phone that night, and he had 100 people that would have came over and said, "It's okay, just wait till morning and see how you feel." But he made sure that everybody was out of the apartment complex. And from my understanding, and just a little bit more on it, he had all of his guitars around him. He had played each one and put notes on them about which song he played for the last time on each guitar before he did that. So it's it was brutal for me for weeks afterwards. For that to happen, somebody that close, somebody that talented, and that you knew he loved God, and he just got to his lowest and deepest point that he felt like there was nothing else he could do. But yeah, we miss Steve. So
yeah, he certainly was a talent, and he certainly is missed. And it was neat to see him in latter years playing on the albums again. So yes,
yeah.
We fondly remember Steve. So, Dale, you guys kept rocking along. You delivered another great album, another classic album in Silence is Madness. We had Hot Down South. We had Rock Those Blues Away toward the end. It was signaling a change that was forthcoming with the more hard rock direction. And so, Dale, was the band becoming restless with the power within the power metal confines, or did the label push for a change, or was it more like Troy saying, "Hey, I kind of want to go," because you said he wasn't so much into the power and thrash type metal. So
we were discontent with what was happening with Christian rock. And you mentioned Rock Those. Is it Rock Those Blues? Is that
that's the last song? Yes, sir.
Yeah. That song was sort of just made up on the spot because we didn't even have enough songs to do an album at that point. But the record company wanted an album, and so we actually had better songs that got tossed by John Petrie, who for some reason he never liked Stephen Rowland's drumming, and he was on to him all the time. His timing at that particular time was not perfect, but man, he could sure play.
Mm-hmm.
And we could follow him. So it was loose, but it was okay because if you're believable, it's fun. But that was a struggle of an album to do because there was an oppression happening and an expectation, and we felt like that we had failed by not writing enough quality songs for the album. And that's how Rock Those Blues got on that particular album, is that we needed another song because I think there was only 9 songs, if my memory serves me correct. So back then you should have had 10 songs. And you get criticized by the fans who pay their money and say, "Hey, how come this album's short?" You wouldn't want to buy your favorite artist and find out they've only put 8 songs on. It's like, what, unless they were really super long and all epic masterpieces.
Well, Dale, I grew up listening to Kiss, and so I'm used to albums that were 32 minutes in length. Back in the 70s. If you don't mind my asking, Dale, because you mentioned Stefan and Frankie too. That's kind of the bride I grew up with, of course, with Scott Hall on the first album. But what happened with Stefan and Frankie? Was it an amicable parting, or they just kind of disappeared? I mean,
well, to be honest, at the time, none of us were that good, but we worked pretty well together as musicians. We were capable of writing songs and playing the songs, but we hadn't locked into that what we needed. We asked Stefan to take drum lessons which was insulting to him. But I said, you need to figure out how to play in time. Your meter's off. You know, you've just got to discipline yourself. Well, at the time, he's working for Big O Tires. So he's working 8, 9, 10 hours, coming in covered in black and tar and sweat already.
Mm-hmm.
And he's having to play drums for 4 hours because we used to rehearse relentless.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so he was under a lot of pressure. At that point, it was pretty much mutual. He wasn't going to take any drum lessons, and I don't blame him. And we weren't going to keep him unless he did.
Right.
And then with Frank was a fine player, and he's 10 times a player today than he was then. But we just didn't feel at the time that Frank was contributing what we needed in a bass player. Frank is the best guy in the world. I mean, we talk all the time. He is one of the nicest, most polite, caring guys that you can ever imagine. And I don't think there's any hard feelings there at all. But I myself am disappointed that we've not reconnected musically with Frank and did something else. But it just hasn't been in the cards. I know a lot of players that I've not played with that I would like to. But it was, at that point, we were making some changes. And Troy and I thought maybe it was it after Silence is Madness, that there would be no more. We thought, well, you know, that's it. With the band, it's gone. We have no band.
The songs that were rejected or whatever, did any of those get used on subsequent releases then, Dale, or are they just not being used at all then?
We did demos of everything. We would go into the studio and basically record the album straight through live, just plug in and play and listen to them back. And a lot of those songs ended up on the Lost Reels 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And a lot of people have listened to like Lost Reels 1 and said that was one of our best albums, even though it was never on a label. We just released it out of the closet. Mm-hmm. And there was no overdubs or anything. We just went in and jammed.
Sure.
On most of it. Some of it might have had overdubs, but most of it was as raw as you can get.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So Dale, then, you know, after Silence is Madness, it gets End of the Age and the brilliant songs. There's the original rendition of Everybody Knows My Name, and of course, Same Old Sinner. I remember us as fans being delighted in that. It was a different sound, but we dug it. You know, Bride's doing something different, and it's great. And then we get to Kinetic Faith, and it was that same hard driving rock. Everybody Knows My Name was on that one as well. So many classics: Young Love, Hired Gun, Ski Mask and Handguns. I could practically read the entire album. Urban legend has it that the band wasn't fully satisfied with the sound production of the album. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, because we had recorded Everybody Knows My Name and Same Old Sinner, and they sounded good. There wasn't a lot of wash going on. And at that particular time, the reason for the change in music is I was listening to a lot of Mother Love Bone. I was listening to Aerosmith, trying to get back to the roots, to the dirty rock sound, listening to Zeppelin. And I was not, contrary to belief, I was not listening to a lot of Guns N' Roses. So it was all those other bands. And but when we did Kinetic Faith, we had worked with John Petrie before, but now we've brought in Steve Griffith, who is a great guy. And but he didn't see what we saw. And when we left that studio, we had songs that sounded like Everybody Knows My Name and Same Old Sinner. When we got the mix, it just sounded like the effects and the delays and the reverbs, and it was just not what we sounded like. If anybody had seen us live, and that we always tried to get a live sound because we always thought we were a better live band than a studio band. But at that point, we brought in Jerry McBroom on drums, and we brought in Rick Foley, on bass, and they played that music really well. Neither one of them would have wanted to been in to do Live to Die. You know, that would not have been what they would have been into. But and we were tight. I mean, but Kinetic Faith doesn't sound tight to me. It just sounds like, I don't know, there's a lot going on. Now, over the years, I've appreciated it more, but I think if it had been mixed drier, people would have really heard what we were trying to do.
A question on Kinetic Faith. Is that album cover what you really wanted?
Absolutely not. That almost broke the band up before we started. That album cover has been thrown in my face several times by band members, and I don't blame them. We needed an album cover, and Star Song and all their infinite wisdom thought, well, let's take these two long-haired boys here, the brothers, and stick them on the cover and bury the rest of the band somewhere else on it. And we looked at each other like, what sort of, I mean, we had a makeup artist, we had a hairdresser, all that to pose for these silly pictures. No, they're Star Song's marketing department, A&R department, was not brilliant. They didn't know what to do with us. They were Sandy Patty, Twila Paris people. And when we come along, they didn't know what to do with us. You know, we weren't as good looking as Carmen, but we weren't ugly. But they tried to pretty us up, I guess, and that was just horrendous.
Oh shoot! So
I'm surprised we didn't get laughed out of the market when that album came out. I mean, you know, you look back on the '80s pictures and you laugh at yourself, but that was bad.
I thought the album was great. I understand what you're saying with regard to the drier sound, such as the original, such as found on End of the Age with the two new songs. I get it. Different sound. And so I understand that. But the great songs that you all offered, Dale, I mean, you could have fooled the rest of us because we all dug it. But at this juncture with Kinetic Faith, that was my introduction to then new bassist Rick Foley. And on June 19th of this year, your friend and former Bride bassist Rick Foley passed away. Dale, if you don't mind, please share a little bit about Rick, because again, we wish to respectfully remember him.
Rick, first time I saw Rick, we were scoping out bands, hoping to find players that we could steal from other bands. And we were at an outdoor gig, Troy and I, and we looked over and somebody said, there's the guy you want to play bass. And there stood Sasquatch, 6'5", just massive man, long hair. And he was just standing out. He had stage presence off stage. And we approached him. He was playing with the band, but he really didn't want to play covers and all that, you know. He wanted to do something else, and we were like, man, you know, we do traveling, we tour and stuff, you know, we got a record deal, you know, we sweetened it up for him, and we brought him in. Rick was with us for 3 albums, I think, 3 albums. But we did more touring than ever with Rick and Jerry, you know, going to Brazil and going to Europe, touring Europe a few times, and all through Canada, all through the States. And we just had a great time with him. He was so funny, and he had a real quick sense of dark humor, and he could really just make you laugh. But after a tour in Europe, Rick had told us he wasn't coming back. He was staying. Oh, okay. Well, I guess he had met somebody there and they had been corresponding or something. I don't know the full story. But we left Rick in Europe and come back to the United States without a bass player after a very successful tour. And I never saw Rick again. And it was the day before he died this year. Jerry sent me a note and said, Rick's in hospice and he's in a bad way. And he's got cancer. And I went over immediately trying to find out how to contact him or whatever. Saw a picture of Rick, and it was just, I tried to erase that from my mind. He looked so bad. You know, you got a 6'5" guy that weighed maybe 120 pounds. And so the only thing that I could do is I found a phone number and I called a message to his wife. It was his wife's phone number, and the message machine picked up. And I just basically said, Rick, you were always the rock star of the band. You outshined us all. But I never heard back from him. I don't know if he got the message. He died the next day. So that was a blow, because Troy and me and Jerry had always thought, we'll do it one more time. We'll do it one more time. We'll show them.
Yeah.
We'll show you what it's all about. But wasn't meant to be. And you know, I have no idea what Rick's years were between the time that we left him until the time he passed away. I do know he moved around a bit, and I heard that he was playing in a band at one time. I think it was called Anti-Griffith. so that was funny. And I think he had made his way to Vegas and Mississippi, and I don't even know what state he was in when he passed away. I don't know where they had moved to, but it was on the weekend of his 22nd wedding anniversary. I do know that, which was going to be rough on his wife.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would have loved to have been able to do a proper send-off for him, but that was the best we could do, being notified so late.
Sure. Well, I know it doesn't make it easier on us here, but one day, brother, you know, that family reunion, we'll have a good time, and I'll get to see that great lineup of Bride again together.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
You know, we fondly remember Rick. Dale, another beautiful song that you guys have written, Sweet Louise, the beautiful acoustic ballad from Kinetic Faith. Who was that in reference to?
That was my mother's mother. Her name was Mabel Louise, and she passed away when I was 12. She was the first person that I remember as a child who had cancer. She had lung cancer, because she come from that era where everybody smoked. Everybody smoked on TV. She was a farmer's wife. My grandfather, Papa Caps, was a farmer from old school days, and had cattle and hogs and cornfields and soybean fields. And I think he had 5 tobacco beds on his farm. And I remember, you know, because I used to hunt, so I was hunting at 8 years old. But I remember going back through, you know, across the fields and stuff. And the first place I wanted to go was through the tobacco barn because of the smell. I love that hanging tobacco. It was just, brings back memories. But I wrote that song not originally with her in mind, but as the song developed, I thought more about the suffering that she had gone through. And she had beautiful black hair, and the fact that, you know, she was having to wear wigs. And at that time, she was her immune system was so bad that we couldn't go up and to see her as kids. Mom and Dad, and it was a safer time, I guess, but they would leave me and Troy down in the lounge area and the concessions and give us a handful of quarters and just tell us to eat and drink and be merry. And so we sat in the waiting room or whatever when they went up to visit. And it was a long visit because, you know, it was 40 minutes to drive there and 40 minutes to come back. And I think she was about 2.5 years, maybe 3, with it before it took her life. And I wish I had a memory of seeing her for the last time, but I don't. I do know they let us go up and say goodbye. But I didn't know that was goodbye. I was too young to know that. But I thought it was odd that they allowed Troy and I to go up that night. So that was. I think that was probably the first funeral that I'd ever been to. So that was had a huge impact. Yeah, so the song developed out of all of that, basically.
Well, it's a beautiful song, and in its own right. And my grandmother's name was Louise, and her name was Eva Louise, but she didn't like to be called Eva because people would say evil Louise. But she went by Louise. But anyway, she passed, she was in her 90s, and she passed this past November. That song, your song, it just went through my head so many times, and I thank you for that. It's still ministering today. So Dale, moving along here, I'm glancing at the time, so I'm going to keep pushing forth. We get to an album in your catalog released in 1992, a little-known album called Snakes in the Playground.
Yeah.
Boy, what an instant classic. You know, just off to the side, there's a website called Angelic Warlord, and they've given so many Bride albums high marks as they deserve. But incidentally, Snakes and your latest release is Bride, Here Is Your God. Both of those received a 95% rating from Angelic Warlord. Well deserved, of course, on both of those. Plinky Giglio produced Snakes. I was aware of him through novellas One Big Sky and A Liquid Earth. How did you meet up with Plinky?
We had a meeting at Star Song, and all the executives were there because we were concerned about our future with them, and they wanted us to do a new album, and they wanted us to use Steve Griffith, who did Kinetic Faith. So we're all sitting around this meeting table. Daryl Harris, the CEO or president or whatever title he had, Jeff Mosley, Des Dickerson, Mike Kyle, I think Tony Thigpen was there maybe. And they're like, well, we really want you to use Steve because we really like what he did on Kinetic Faith. And I said, we won't record again. And Daryl Harris reminded me of Elaine from Seinfeld's boss. I can't remember his name. But on Seinfeld, Elaine had a boss. And Daryl Harris reminded me of this guy. And I said, I answered him and I said, well, God told me not to use him again. Daryl goes, good enough for me. Who are we going to use? just like that. Throw the God card at you. So they're like, well, who would you like to use? And I said, well, Novella's album sounds great. Sounds much better than Kinetic Faith. It's a brilliant album. They said, all right, done. We'll use Plinky. And that's how Plinky came on.
Very cool. Very cool.
I got a question, Dale. When you were done recording Snakes, did you, one, were you really happy with it compared to like Kinetic Faith? And did you have an idea that it was going to be as huge as what it turned out to be?
We knew it was musically and mentally and spiritually stronger than any album that we had done, though people still talk about Live to Die. Live to Die was a bunch of boys just jamming. Snakes in the Playground was well thought out, and we played it really well. We had come into our own at that point. We were all much better singers, musicians, and everything at that point. We knew something was going to happen with it because the record company, when they heard it, was behind it 100%. Matter of fact, we did I Miss the Rain. That was on there, right? I Miss the Rain? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And when Jeff Mosley, I forget what his position was, but it was high up in the company. When he heard it, he wanted another ballad. So we wrote Goodbye in the studio at that point because he wanted another ballad. And then when he heard Goodbye, he teared up. So we knew we had got him. We got him now. They love us. So we were really happy. And then that thing broke through a series of strange happenings that it really went. I mean, it's outsold our other records tenfold, some of them. So,
quick question about I Miss the Rain from that album. Rick Florian sings some harmony vocals on that song. How did that
Yeah.
connection come about?
There was a part that I wanted in the song, and I just wasn't feeling it. Because especially at that time, I wasn't a soul singer, so to speak, you know, and I wanted some really good vocal. And we had played with Whiteheart a few times and the Newsboys several times, and we ended up bringing all those guys in for that. So Newsboys sang on different songs, I think maybe "Don't Use Me," and Rick Florian come in and he nailed that part, and I'm just like, whoa, man, that's awesome. And he's like, I can do it again. And we're like, no, that's it. You can go home. That's it. No, that's the one take, dude. And he's like, all right, cool. Out he goes. It was that easy. So I'm just glad he came.
What about Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters on there, Dale? I mean, I know you all are from Kentucky. Your family, how did you cross paths with Greg? Did you always know him? Or?
No, I may be lying about all of this, but this is how I remember it. Greg emailed me, pretty sure of that, and he said, I read an article that you did in the Louisville Times or whatever it is, Louisville newspaper, and I see that you're a Christian rock artist. He said, I'm a Christian too, and I just wanted to touch base. And he gave me his number. So I phoned him up and started talking to Greg. I'm blown away, you know, because this is, at the time, they were the #1 country band around. And I said, well, you know, would love to get you in on a song or something, you know, we should do something. So we brought him in on Snakes. He came in, he wouldn't let me pay him, and he did that. He actually come to Louisville once, and I did an acoustic album called Acoustic Daylight. And I played the whole thing for him, and he watched me, and basically he said, yeah, let's go, we can do this. It was recorded. I said, all right. So we sat in the studio just across from each other and recorded Acoustic Daylight, just like you hear it. He went back and added some little fillers, and we recorded that album in about 2 hours. And we were done with it. And it's a beautifully played album. I mean, it's great, especially that we didn't have any rehearsals. But yeah, we brought Greg in on that one, and that turned out really well because, man, he's a player, and I'd love to just sit down and write stuff with him. But you know, being here, it's hard to do.
Sure. I gotta make some time here for us. So I do want to just say, I mean, friends out there, you might remember Dale. He produced Louisville, Kentucky band Killed by Cain, sang backing vocals on the album Introduction to Hypocrisy in Sin City. It was 1993. Dale, you might remember, friends, I remember seeing this all over the TV at the time. Dale teamed up with hip-hop group Disciples of Christ. They did a re-recorded cover of Argent's God Gave Rock and Roll to You on DOC's album Pulling No Punches. Dale, I'd love to dig in a little deeper more with that, but I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure that, well, I got to ask you, really quickly, how did that transpire, your team up with hip-hop group DOC?
The record company had DOC in the studio at the same time as we were doing Snakes in the Playground, and they wanted a rock band. They wanted to pull off like an Aerosmith type thing that they did with Run DMC or whoever they did it with. And they brought in the song that was basically just rap, and then Troy come up with the main guitar hook, and so that made it rock. And then I just came in and I sang the chorus once, I think, and then they cut and pasted it in all the places, and then I did some screams, and that song was done. I mean, we knocked that thing out in an hour probably once we heard it, and we didn't know what was going to happen with it. And then we were doing a show, I think in Atlanta, and they said, well, we're going to shoot a video. If you want to be in it, you need to come to Tennessee tonight. So we played the show like in Atlanta and had to drive all the way to Nashville straight after the show. No showers or anything. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning when we shot that video for that. We did it in a cotton mill, filthy place too, filthy cotton mill. And we shot it right there. They had all the lights up and stuff, and we did our thing, got in the vehicles, and I think we were probably back in Louisville around 7 or 8 in the morning, you know. So it was a whirlwind video.
Oh yeah, it was cool though, man. Does your throat ever burn after screaming like that?
No,
Wow, you have a
I mean, I screamed all day, not all day, but about 2 hours yesterday on a Perpetual Paranoia song. And today I'll do this blues song, so I'll be good.
I hear you. So really quick, then pushing right along, we get to 1994 Scarecrow Messiah. How did y'all bring? I believe Oz Fox played guitar on Doubt, wasn't it?
Yeah, Oz Fox came in. So what happened there was we were very disconcerted with Star Song, and we weren't going to do another album for them because they weren't going to give us what we wanted, and we felt like that they were indebted to us. So I was approached by Dino Elefante, who said, "I tell you what, we'll record you an album. We'll do it for nothing. You don't have to pay us anything. And if Star Song wants this album, they'll have to buy it from us." So they flew us to California, the Elefantes, John and Dino, and we recorded that. And in that time, he said, "Would you want Oz Fox to come in from Stryper and play on the song?" "Oh yeah, I'd love to." So Oz came in, he knocked that thing out like minutes. And then we pretty much had Star Song where we wanted them because we really wanted out of that relationship. And John and Dino had treated us so good, we wanted to be with the Pachyderm label or whatever it was, whatever came next, I forget. But anyway, whatever they were, we wanted to be with them at that point. So that got us out of the Star Song contract. We fulfilled our obligations and refused to sign on.
Very cool. I did mean to ask you, in 1992, you handled lead vocals, if I'm not mistaken, for a single Stryper show. And it was subsequently announced, not by you, but by a different party, that you were the band's new lead singer. You had followed up by clarifying you were remaining with Bride. Dale, is that the official true version of that story? And did you even consider for a second to becoming Stryper's lead vocalist at that time?
I actually did. And what transpired there is that we had opened for Stryper on a tour after In God We Trust that they had released, and they were doing a small tour. And I think it was like 14, 15 dates, maybe. I can't remember. But anyway, we did that tour with them, and they were so impressed with my vocals that Robert kind of took me to the side and said, "Hey, we've got some problems with Mike. We don't think he wants to continue on. Would you be interested in singing?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's Stryper." So he flies me out to California. We rehearsed for a week, I think. I rehearsed for a couple of weeks at home in my bathroom with songs that he sent. And then I think it was about a week of live rehearsals. And we played Knott's Berry Farm. And it was an amazing experience. And yeah, I was very, very tempted to do it. But they were just too polished for me. It was, Stryper's King of the Hill. And I tell you what I did. This is a funny story, and not many people have heard this one. Before the show, they were all putting on their costumes and makeup, and they actually had to go get clothes for me from somebody. I think even Michael. I think I was wearing Michael's pants that night, and I don't know whose shirt, but that's not normally how I would dress on stage. And I saw that they were all getting makeup done, so I went and I hid under the stage, so I didn't have to put the makeup on. And I heard somebody say, "Well, where's Dale?" I said, "Well, we'll start the intro tape. He'll come out." They didn't know where I was hiding. And when the intro tape came on, I knew it was safe that nobody could powder my face. So I come out on stage at that point, and we broke right into it. I don't remember much about the show. I remember riding roller coasters with Robert after the show, I think it was, because he was wearing cowboy boots. And I thought that was wild that he's wearing his cowboy boots on the roller coasters. His hat never blows off. So it's a cool thing, It's but yeah, I was quite honored. I mean, those guys on tour treated us, man, they treated us good. They were what they claimed to be. They're all right guys. And I think Oz and I have grown closer over the years. I haven't talked to Oz since his last surgery, but we do talk occasionally. So
very cool, very cool. Guys, Dale has the award of being the strongest man in Kentucky. That's true. And I'm picturing a gentleman here that can bench press well over 400 plus pounds, and he's scared of the makeup lady at the Stryper show.
The record was 545.
Awesome, buddy. Awesome. Really quick, I've got to ask you, we got 5 minutes left. I've got to ask you about Drop, because it was such a change. That was on Rugged Records, such a change in musical direction. But you know what, Dale? It's held up extremely well over time. There is a whole lot that I love from that album. It boasts my favorite Bride lyrics. If Jesus Christ offends you, you wear X's in your eyes. Tell us about Drop and the band's decision to mandolin, banjo. I mean, you name it, it's on there, but it holds up great.
Help them breathe the air.
Well, we wanted it a little bit more earthy sounding, because even after the whole Stryper thing, we got all this rave review and then going into Scarecrow, but things started dying off again. You know, music comes in cycles. It's like where I'm at right now. It's sort of a dead spot. I'm doing all this music, but the music doesn't sell like it used to sell. So I had to do something to generate controversy and a change musically in the band. So that was done on purpose. It was a big risk. A lot of people hated it because maybe their last album they bought from Bride was Live to Die, and then they go and buy Drop. Man, what a slap in the face. You know, it's like, are you kidding me? But a lot of people have said, we gave it some time and now it's our favorite Bride album, or it's way up there. We just didn't know what you were doing. It was too much of a shock for us. And, you know, that probably was the biggest thing. It wasn't that there was anything wrong with the album. It was that nobody expected that to come out of Bride. It's the same way with Fistful of Bees.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we teamed back up with Plinky for Fistful of Bees, and I wanted something that was current. I wanted something that was now, and I knew I couldn't rap. So what I called it was chanting. I did chants on the album because I wasn't much of a rapper. But if people listen to Fistful of Bees, Troy's guitar tones and his riffs on that album may be the best that we've ever done. I mean, the low point of that is I was having major vocal problems. I had what they call an ulcerated vocal cord, and the doctors wanted to do surgery, and they said I would probably never sing again. So I put it in the hands of God, but I put it in the hands of God after Fistful of Bees. So I was limited on what I could do vocally on Fistful of Bees. Nobody knows that. I've never told anybody that the reason we gave you that album is because I couldn't sing, and we wanted to do an album, and I struggled through the whole thing, tooth and nail, just trying to get words out without pain. I was in pain, and it would look bad, and God healed me of it. I had no surgery, and I've not had a sore throat since. So I'm convinced that once I just said I'm going to stop fighting this thing with my own strength and turn it over to the Lord, He took care of it, because I did a lot more singing from that time on than I ever did before.
It's hard to imagine, though, you having any vocal issues, Dale, because you sing so delicate.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if you've caught any of those live broadcasts that I do on my Facebook page, you know, where I show people how I actually do a song now.
yeah.
But it's full on. So
Yeah. So, got a couple more things to say real quick, but I do want, at this juncture, Dale, I know that people can, if they have a project and they need your vocals, I know that you afford that opportunity to people. What's the best place for them to contact you?
they can go through Messenger to my Facebook, send me a note, or they can send me an email, Dale Thompson 1963 at gmail.com. And yeah, over the last 36 months, I've recorded over 600 songs for different artists. For example, Perpetual Paranoia, we've released 3 albums, but we have 7 albums total finished. Dabster Gentleman, I think we have about 12 albums of that. Haunted No More, which is probably my favorite one of everything because of the nature of it, and it's so personal. And nobody has heard me do that type of style before. It's very dark and gothic and foreboding and all those words. And I think we've got 5 albums. I've got 4 hymnal albums that are finished that I think they start coming out next year. Doing work with Sovereign Cross. That album will be out. The Thompson Earth Project. Rocks Records just picked that one up again. We Are Resolute. Finished that one up recently, so they should be mixing soon. So I mean, the list goes on and on. I don't want to leave anybody out, but it's a lot of bands.
You've done The World Will Burn. You've done No Other God. Dale, I would be remiss if we didn't mention Dale Thompson and the Boondogs. That's slated, if I'm not mistaken, that's a blues album you've done, and it's slated for an August 27th release. Is that correct?
Yes. Girder Music signed that on. They've done a great job with it. They gave me a timeline. They said, we need 10 songs that we can go vinyl with, so you have to keep it under so many minutes. So I went to Miles Barfield, my good friend, and who I work with, and Iron 501, Dabster Gentleman, and Haunted No More. And I said, do you want to mix this for me? Because I've got the songs in my head, I just need the players. So I rounded up players from on the internet, basically. I said, can you play blues? They're like, yeah. Would you like to play some blues? Yeah. And it's funny because Greg Campbell, bassist, he and I have already recorded 7 more blues songs in case there's another one. So that's what I'll be recording song 8 today for an album not slated until 2022. But yeah, the Boondogs is a very cool blues album. I started off doing the blues 30 years ago with Dale Thompson and the Religious Overtones.
Yep.
And then I did Dale Thompson and the Kentucky Cadillacs. And now it's Dale Thompson and the Boondogs. And this album is really a special album because I have a lot of different players on it, a lot of different types of blues. And Miles's mix just really made it come together. And I don't know if he's going to mix the next one or not because he's really tied up in the other projects that he and I have already done that he needs to mix. He has a calendar of dates when he's releasing material, and he sticks to it pretty closely. He doesn't want to, get behind. But I'll keep tugging on him to do it because he is really good at what he does.
Dale, if you could, just for a moment, I'd like to hear more about this Hymnal Project you mentioned. What's that about?
That's being done with Miles Barfield as well. He and I both are, we look at modern praise and worship like it's cookie cutter. Let's take a psalm, let's cut it up, let's put a cheerleader on the stage and a big screen. Let's fill the stage with a lot of good-looking young people, and let's just sing and praise God. Well, that's a formula, and that's something that I don't get much out of it personally. And when I talked to Miles, he didn't either. It's just like, yeah, it's so sterile. Yeah, they got a drummer and they got a guitarist, and they're all hooping and hollering and jumping around. But it's the soul of the song seems like to me that it was spit out by a computer program that goes, every song's going to sound exactly the same. And we're just going to chorus this thing out. So what we decided to do is write our own hymnals based on original hymnals from the past, written in the 19th century and things of that sort. And really make the songs come alive. And I did all sorts of different vocals. I did all the female parts of the vocals. I did all the bass tones of the vocals. Sometimes it's a nice, just like a praise song, but it's not what you hear today. It's more of the old style hymnal albums. And I think we have four records recorded. If you go onto YouTube, we have a sample of one of the songs called King of Kings. I think it's on my official YouTube page. You might not be able to find it otherwise, because I don't think he put a name to it. But we were thinking this is Dabster doing hymnals, but I don't know if he's going to put Dabster Gentleman on the album when it comes out. He may come up with something else. It's a funny thing, because once I record these songs, they're gone. It's like I've sent a child off into the world, you know. Briefly, because a lot of people don't know how I do things now, but I'm in my bedroom right now. This is where I record, right here. I got my handy dandy microphone, and somebody will send me a track, a WAV file, and I listen to that song one time through. I go through my stack of lyrics, and I find a lyric that I want to sing that day. After I've listened to it one time through, I've already charted it out in my head. And then I've got my lyrics. And then I hit record. And in less than 2 hours, I'm completely done with the song. I never rehearse it. Sing it. It's called first impression recording, which is a term I've made up. So everything that I've done, except for the Bride album, because I try to stick with the formula that Troy and I do. All of these other albums, We Are Resolute, the Swingle and Thompson Ordained, all of those are first impression vocals all the way through. Now, if I'm singing out of key, yeah, I'll fix it. But I usually it's just one take all the way through, and I try to do 3 takes of each song so they can pick the better vocals to put. But within an hour and a half or 2 hours, I'm finished with the song, and I can move on. So it's not like I've lived with the song. I don't even know the lyrics to any Perpetual album. I don't know a single lyric, because once I'm done, it goes back to the originator, and then they do the mixing of it. But that's how I'm operating now. And I guess for some people, they like it. Other people, they would want more of me to spend more time on the song. But it seems to be working, and I don't think I can do the songs any better than what I'm doing now. So, but anyway, that's a little bit into my psyche of recording.
I'm gonna book Perpetual Paranoia in concert just so I can see Dale struggle with the lyrics live on stage.
I would have to have a teleprompter for sure.
I'll tell you.
And yeah.
You see these things right here? I have them all up my legs, and this is a true story. This man right here, Dale has tattoos all up his legs, and I saw him in a picture. And I have wanted tattoos ever since I was in 7th grade. And I'm like, Dale Thompson is the coolest guy out there, man. So, Dale, I have you to thank for my tats, buddy.
Well, if you're happy with them, I'm happy with them.
So I know that we're pressed for time. Really quick, cinching this up. Dale, they can catch you on Facebook, and I will post the link whenever this airs, if that's okay with you, to your Facebook page. Do you wish for me to post it publicly, the link to your Dale Thompson 1963 at gmail.com? Is that okay, or would you prefer?
No, yeah, just when you have it all edited where you want it and things like that, then yeah, just let me know, and I'll promote the show and
Sure.
and get it out there. So it can, you can tag me in it if you put it on Facebook, or send it straight to my email.
We'll definitely let you know, buddy. We'll let you know when it airs. We always like to close out every episode. I mean, we're servants of the Lord, and we believe in His Word wholeheartedly. And we just like to have a brief scripture close out. Michael, if you would.
Sure. In honor of the name of your primary project through the years, which has been Bride, I've chosen Ephesians 5:25 through 27. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless.
That's a good one.
So, Dale, thank you so much. I mean, you and Troy and everybody, past and present and bride, y'all have ministered to us back when we were teens, and we're not teens anymore. But thank you. It's truly been an honor. Thank you so much for being used, being available for the Lord as a vessel to minister to us and to others. Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for thinking that I deserve to be on this program. It's an honor for me, and wanted to let you know that we have a hymnal album coming out. Troy and I, it's like Southern gospel stuff, with our dad. That's going to be released, and we recorded a rock and roll Christmas album that is being put together now, that will be available in time for Christmas. And then when that's completed, Troy and I will start the next Bride album, because we feel like that Snake Eyes and Here Is Your God is more of a trilogy. So we'll follow somewhat of the same vein of that style. And then who knows after that what happens. But I'm shutting down a lot of my projects. So I recorded the last Perpetual Paranoia album or song I'll ever do last night. That was kind of a bittersweet thing. And, Dabster's done for me. On and No More's finished. So a lot of the projects that I've invested a lot hours and hours in are already completed. So I'm open for more projects. There's a few things on the table. And hopefully this time next year, we can talk again, and I'll have a whole lot more to tell you guys about all the good stuff the Lord's doing in my life.
Sure. And yes, I did not mean to skip over your latter albums. I know you're pressed for time, but Sarbama and Here Is Your God, those have all, in Skin for Skin a few years back. Prior to that, been getting high marks. It's kind of a return to that, not the power metal, but the metal-esque Bride, good stuff. And I look forward, Dale, who is putting out the Christmas album and the album with you and the hymnal album? Is that Girder?
That's going to be on our own label, Father of the Bride Records.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying something new. Long story short, we need to be more independent.
Sure, I got you.
Yeah.
So, friends, Dale has he's got to do some recording. He let us know, so we need to let Dale go and be respectful of his time. Thank you so much, Dale. It's been a privilege.
Yeah, privilege.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. All right, take care.
Shame on you.